There is an airport, so isolated that the nearest airport is more than 1,600 miles away. A single runway, in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Pilots flying here carry enough fuel to turn around and fly all the way back, because if something goes wrong, there is nowhere else to land. More than 7,000 people live here, and almost everything they need. Food, medicine, fuel, even visitors arrive through this one runway. South Pacific Ocean, 2,300 miles west of Chile, 2,600 miles east of Tahiti, a volcanic island, 63 square miles. So remote that standing on its shore, you can see the curvature of the Earth on the horizon. Most people know Easter Island because of these nearly 1,000 stone statues built 600 years ago by hand from volcanic rock. But the real mystery of Easter Island is not the statues. It is how 7,700 people survive here, right now, today, when almost everything they need has to come from somewhere else. One airline, one destination. Santiago, Chile, 2,300 miles away. That flight is not just transportation. It is the island's connection to civilization, to food, to medicine, to the outside world. Everything depends on it. Every piece of fresh fruit on this island, every vegetable, every piece of meat arrived on a plane or a cargo ship from the mainland. Nothing grows here in quantities that can feed 7,700 people. The island eats because the connection holds. Once a month, a cargo ship arrives, carrying the things too heavy for planes: construction materials, machinery, large supplies. But Easter Island has no deep water port, so everything is offloaded onto small boats, then carried to shore, one box at a time. If the sea is rough, the process stops and the island waits. Fuel arrives by tanker ship, anchored offshore, pumped to land, through a hose stretched across the water. The electricity on this island runs on that fuel, and it cuts out every single week. Not because something went wrong, because that is simply how life works here. The island is too far for an undersea cable, so all communication, phone calls, internet, everything goes through satellites in space. The internet here is slow, expensive, and unreliable. The outside world exists, but only partially. There is one hospital, one small building, 3 ventilators, no specialist surgeons. If something serious happens to you here, you are stabilized, and then you wait for a flight. A medical evacuation flight to Santiago costs $60,000. And because aviation rules here are so strict, even in an emergency, you fly on the scheduled service with everyone else. The island runs a dialysis center for patients who cannot travel. Their medical supplies arrive by cargo ship every 3 months. The center stocks enough for 3 months, and then it waits for the next ship. Everything costs 60% more here than on the mainland, because everything comes from somewhere else. A simple meal at a restaurant can cost the equivalent of $40. Not because Easter Island is luxury, but because isolation has a price, and someone has to pay it. In March 2020, the flight stopped. COVID had reached the mainland. The island closed. And for the first time in decades, Easter Island was almost completely cut off from the rest of the world. Food prices spiked overnight. The island asked Chile for emergency food aid. The requests went unanswered. Residents planted over 1,000 vegetable gardens to survive, because the connection had broken. And yet, 7,700 people choose to live here. They raise children here. They run businesses here. They fall in love here. They grow old here, on an island that most of humanity will never visit, and almost none will ever understand. Children grow up knowing the plane schedule better than anyone, because when a friend moves away, or a relative gets sick, or supplies run low, everything depends on when the next flight arrives. When no plane is coming, the runway becomes a park. Locals walk their dogs on it. Children ride bikes along it. Because on an island this small, you use what you have. And between flights, this strip of asphalt belongs to everyone. When the plane does arrive, the whole island feels it. Supplies, mail, medicines, spare parts, new faces, returning family members. For a few hours, the island is connected, and then the plane leaves, and the quiet returns. The runway they are landing on was paid for by NASA in 1985, extended for Space Shuttle emergency landings. The program was canceled. NASA never used it once. But without that runway, wide-body jets could never land here, and this life could never exist. But isolation does not only shape daily life, it has shaped everything that came before. And what happened to this island? If you want to uncover the stories the world forgot, subscribe to Strange World Vault. Before that runway existed, before any plane ever landed here, is one of the most devastating stories you have never been told. When Polynesian navigators first arrived here, around 1200 AD, they found a volcanic island covered in forest. They built a civilization. They carved nearly 1,000 stone statues. They developed their own language, and the only writing system ever discovered in all of Polynesia. Of December 1862, 8 Peruvian ships arrived. The crew laid trade goods on the beach. When islanders came to look, guns fired, people were seized, tied up, and carried to the ships. 1,500 people were taken in a matter of days, including the king, his heir, and every single person on the island who knew how to read and write. The writing system was called Rongo-Rongo, the only script ever discovered in Polynesia. Every person who could read it was taken that night and died in Peruvian labor camps. Nobody alive today can read it. The knowledge was lost in a single evening. 90% of those taken died in Peruvian guano mines. Brutal forced labor. The survivors were eventually released and sent back. They brought smallpox with them, which killed most of what remained. Then a French businessman arrived, turned the island into a sheep ranch, and shipped the rest away. By 1877, the entire population of Easter Island was 111 people, from a civilization that had thrived for 600 years. 111 in total. Of those 111, only 36 had children. Every single person living on Easter Island today, all 7,700 of them, descends from those same 36 people. The entire community, rebuilt from 36 survivors. And the cruelest part is that the outside world did this, not the island, not the people. The connection to civilization that the island now depends on to survive was once the very thing that nearly destroyed it. People are sometimes asked, why do you stay on an island so far from everything, where food costs twice as much, where the power cuts out every week, where a medical emergency means a 6-hour flight? The answer is always the same. This is home. These are my ancestors. Those statues were built by my family. That ocean is where my grandfather fished. No city, no convenience, no connection is worth more than the place where you know who you are. Every morning on Easter Island, the runway is quiet. The ocean stretches in every direction, 1,200 miles to the nearest land. The rest of the world does not yet exist. For a few hours, the island is completely and perfectly alone. And then, a sound from somewhere over the horizon, getting louder. And the island, without announcing it, without ceremony, exhales. Supplies arrive. Medicines reach the hospital. Fresh food reaches the shelves. A child sees a grandparent step off the plane. The power stays on tonight. And 7,700 people, at the edge of the world, descended from 36 survivors, continue another day at the most isolated place humans have ever called home. Getting to Easter Island is difficult. Next week, a road where the journey itself is the danger. The locals call it the Death Road, and the name is not an exaggeration. 64 kilometers, no barriers, no guardrails, a drop of 600 meters, and every year, vehicles go over the edge. Episode 8, The World's Most Dangerous Road, coming next week. This was Strange World Vault. If this changed how you see the world, subscribe. There's always more to uncover.